Welcome back to Terror Takeover, your one-stop shop for all things creepy, disgusting, and horrifying. I'm your host, Crow,
And I'm sure.
and we are back with another episode. I think that it's probably obvious what movie we watched this week because everybody has
Yes.
been talking about it. This is all over social media, and sometimes I wonder, is it just that I built this algorithm brick by brick, or is it really that people are talking about it so much? This week, we watched Longlegs, so we are going to
Yes.
get all into that. But first, we have a few other things to talk about. There are some pretty cool news things that came out. It's kind of just updates on things we already knew were happening. But
For sure.
teaser stills, like teaser screenshots from Terrifier 3 came out, and the actual trailer is coming out
Exciting.
tomorrow, which it will be out by the time that this episode drops because we do record in advance. So I'm excited to see the trailer for that. I don't really have any idea where they're going with it. And in the teaser stills, there was one picture of Art the Clown dressed up as Santa. So I was like, okay,
Oh,
we'll see.
shit.
We'll see how this goes.
Okay. Interesting.
Right. There is the final trailer for Alien Romulus came out, and the movie we
Nice.
know comes out on August 16th. So people are really excited about that as well because we know that the movie is directed by, I think his name is Fede Alvarez, which is really great because he was the director of that new Evil Dead movie that came out. I believe it was 2013, right? And I really liked that one. I thought it was great. And that's also a good sign because we know that this next Alien movie is going to be a true horror film, which the more
Yes.
recent ones that came out were more sci-fi, which is fine, and I enjoyed them too. But I'm really looking forward to this one. Also,
Absolutely.
the director for Bodies, 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 Helena Rain, I think you would say her name like Rain or something like that, came out with a new movie called Baby Girl. I don't know if you've been seeing anything about that.
No, I didn't know about that actually. That sounds good.
Yeah, so it's
Wait.
supposed to be an erotic thriller. It's like basically about a taboo workplace romance type
No, I think I
situation.
have seen it actually. I think I have actually. Sorry. It's not
Right.
like scary, really. Yeah, Nicole Kidman's
It's
in
a
it.
thriller,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
excited because
Interesting.
I love a lot of people were comparing this to Basic Instinct and also what's that
Ooh.
movie with Glenn Close and it's she's this guy's coworker and she becomes obsessed with him. Fatal Attraction. It kind of is
Oh.
giving
Oh. Yeah.
I don't remember if they're coworkers or what. I don't remember what happens in that movie, but it's kind of giving that same vibe. So I'm
That's
hoping
fair.
we get a little late 80s, early 90s tease and we kind
Yeah,
of
a little spicy
get into
moment.
that. Right. I'm loving that. And
There's a lot more
the people
movies coming out with that moment right now, I think. Like
right.
romance, but with a little bit extra, something taboo about it.
Yeah, that's what I
They have that
like.
Anne Hathaway movie too. Like there's just a lot going on.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'm excited. I'm going to be on the lookout. That one's called Baby Girl, so I'm not sure exactly when that one's coming out. I think it's pretty recently. I didn't actually look into that, but it looks pretty cool,
Oh
so
shit.
we'll keep an eye out for that one. So, we do have a lot to get into with this movie, so we are going to probably totally nix most of the small talk and just get right into it so that way we don't go over our time because we are actually about to after this as soon as we finish recording this episode we're going to be doing a guest spot on the Lo-Fi Horror Guys podcast and we are going to just be
Yes,
talking about
exciting.
horror over there. So by the time that this episode releases it will probably be up on his page. Obviously you will have missed the live if you weren't there, but you will be
True.
able to watch it, I believe, after the fact. So we watched Longlegs.
Yes.
I watched it last Thursday. I think you saw it a few days before me.
Yeah, I saw them like the Friday after it came out. Or like the next day.
Right. Which also you're did you go by yourself?
I did, yeah, I did.
You're a baddie. I love that you do that.
Yeah.
I love that.
I like movie theaters. I think they're fun. I will say that I made
Yeah.
a point to choose a theater in like a time that was packed. Like I didn't want to be the only person in the theater
Oh,
watching a scary movie, but it wasn't packed. Like it wasn't filled completely, but there were like, a decent number of people in every single row, so we all were kind of experiencing this movie together, and that helped
okay.
with the feeling as well. I
I
just
thought it,
prefer that.
yeah, for sure. So I generally prefer a theater to be like me and maybe one or two other people in the theater. That's when I'm the most
Really?
comfortable when we're like
Oh my
totally
god.
across from each other in the theater.
Yeah.
And I went with a friend of mine. I think we went at like 8 p.m. or something on a Wednesday. And this was the
Okay.
Wednesday after opening weekend. So I thought there
Yeah.
would be nobody in there, but we couldn't even sit next to each other because of how packed it was. We had to pick seats that were
Damn.
like across from each other. It was kind of crazy.
That's so crazy. That's so extra. That
Yeah.
would suck.
Well,
That'd
the
be
hype
awkward.
about this movie is real. And the thing that I
Yeah,
thought was
for sure.
interesting is, first of all, not only are there not a lot of people going to the movies anymore, but there really aren't a lot of people checking for horror like that. I feel like when a
Yeah.
movie is packed, it's a Marvel movie or it's, I don't know, like Pineapple
Avatar
Express
or
or something
something.
like that. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
Avatar,
yeah.
something that's like easily marketable. So I was actually really surprised to see that all the marketing that they did for this movie really, really actually had an effect on people.
Yeah, it definitely paid off. I feel like everyone I know, even now, like I have coworkers that messaged me just the other day to be like, "Hey, do you think I should go see Longlegs?" And I'm like,
Right.
"You?" I mean, well, I personally am gonna
Right.
say yes, but I'm just like, "Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
didn't know you were into all that. Like, I know you're not really a horror girly, but okay, check it out." I think
Yeah.
everyone I know is like very interested in it. I think there's just this zeitgeist moment of like, I gotta make sure I see this movie. I gotta see what the hype is about. I gotta see Nick
Right.
Cage and like see what Longlegs is, because that was my big thing before I even like saw the trailer. I was just like, what the fuck is
What is
Longlegs? I'm
long
like, what is
legs?
this
Yeah.
movie about? You know, the artwork was
Right.
incredible. Like that still shot of the woman just like with the knife over her own stomach, like
Yeah.
stuff like that had me
That's a
very
cool
very
shot.
intrigued. So
For sure. Yeah, I will say we absolutely have to talk about the marketing a little bit. The marketing was crazy. I think they
yeah,
probably spent quite a bit of money on that because it seemed like I was getting an ad for long legs every few posts. And I'm sure they were targeting
man, all the
people like
time.
me and people like you
Yeah,
who are actually actively consuming horror content essentially, but it was it was all over the place. And there was one
yes,
ad that came out that was like, Micah Monroe didn't actually see Nick Cage's character in the makeup. And so this scene, and this is her actual heart rate. And we don't actually know that it really was her heart rate because how were they monitoring it? Number one, I mean, maybe they were, but also it was
yeah,
just, it was very convincing. And then, of course, they did the thing where it was like, this is the scariest movie of 2024. And a lot of people were saying, like, this is
yeah,
the scariest movie of the past 10 years, which I have my own opinions about that.
yeah.
But
That's
it was
wild
like,
to say.
right. But I mean, honestly, people can really just say whatever they want. And it worked. It got us in the theater and we
Yeah.
were talking about it for quite some time.
No, absolutely. And I feel like they did a good job of making sure that the ads didn't show too much. Like a lot of movies lately will have a trailer that's basically the entire movie, and you're kind of like, I don't know if I want to see this anymore. Like I kind of get it.
Right.
But with Long Legs, I really had no idea what it was about or what the details were pretty much until I was in the theater. And even then I was kind of like, okay, I'm piecing it together as I'm watching the movie, but I didn't
Right.
really get, the trailer could have been about anything for what they showed. I mean, the
Absolutely.
movie could have been about anything from the trailer, I should say.
Well, it was funny because I had seen a bunch of like previews for, or not previews, I'd seen a bunch of,
I
I
guess you
guess,
call them
promotional
teasers?
marketing material, right? So things like that.
Okay.
And I still didn't know what the hell the movie was about until I looked it up. And I was like, oh, it's like a crime movie. Okay. That's not what
Yeah.
or a true,
An
not true
FBI
crime, but
manhunt.
right, basically, which is the kind of thing that we love. So that was
Yeah,
very
for sure.
intriguing. It was directed by
Yeah.
Osgood Perkins, who also goes by Oz Perkins. So I wanted to include both there. But he also directed
Yeah.
this movie called I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. And I'm pretty sure I saw
Yes.
that movie years and years ago. So I don't really remember too much about it. But that is pretty different from this movie. So I thought that was interesting. That movie had
Yeah.
come out in 2016.
He also did
Um,
a Hansel and Gretel movie as well. That was kind of like
did
a
he?
he did. Yeah, that's kind of like his wild take on like a horror version of that classic
I
story,
think I
Hansel and
saw
Gretel.
that.
Yeah. He's actually he's like loosely tied into the horror world. Obviously his dad as well as another prominent figure, but
Wait, who's his dad?
oh, sorry. His dad is Anthony Perkins from
Is it
Psycho.
really?
Yes, yes,
Okay, that
actually.
explains a lot.
Yeah. Really about him?
Anyway,
I'm screaming.
yeah, but we.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay. That makes sense. They look alike. That's crazy. I never would have. Oh my god, I had no idea.
Yeah, yeah. He said that he was. I mean, his dad passed away before, like, obviously this movie came out and everything else. But he feels like
Right.
his dad would be proud of his movie that he's doing, proud of him like
Oh,
taking this
that's
step.
sweet.
I think he might have a sibling that's in horror as well, but I'm not really sure. I didn't look all that up,
Okay.
but yeah. So he's done a couple other creepy-ish things, but
Oh wow,
this
I
was
can't
his big
believe.
debut for sure. Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's a shocker. I didn't know that. So, fun fact. I just want to start by saying this is probably one of my favorite genres of horror and just of movies in general. So I did look at this movie with an extremely critical lens. I love anything that is basically like occult and conspiracy crime films. That's like a
yeah.
huge thing for me. Really, really
It was a
enjoy
great
that.
trifecta.
Right. So I know that I'm probably going to be a little bit more critical than many people want to actually hear about this movie, but it's just because I have such a respect for the genre that being
Yeah.
said, let's get right into it. I will say, if you liked Silence of the Lambs, if you like the Zodiac movie that came out, or if you're interested in the Zodiac
Yeah.
killer stuff,
And
I've heard some
Seven.
people comparing this movie to Seven, right? If you're interested in those kinds of things, you're probably going to love this movie. If you like Michael Monroe, you're probably going to like this movie. If you like Nicolas Cage in a wild acting role, you're going to like this movie. And I talked to a lot of people about it beforehand because I was saying, what do you think about Nick Cage's acting kind of thing is what I was asking people. And a lot of them were
Yeah.
saying, well, either I like him in a serious role or I like him when he's acting crazy, but not when he's being serious. And I was like, that's interesting that he's so polarizing. And
Yeah.
I think I'm like one of the people that likes him when he's in like a serious and like not super wild role. So I think that that like kind of
Really?
affected my opinion of this. But
That's
yeah,
fair. I
what do
think
you
that he
think?
really puts I think he puts himself into whatever role that he does. Like he does a really
Yeah,
good job of just taking it very seriously and disappearing into the role. Um I've mostly only seen him in serious works. Like I haven't seen Mandy yet. I haven't seen more of his
right.
like recent work, but I obviously I just to say I enjoyed his work as Longlegs
Right.
in the movie. I thought he did a great job being crazy and being wild and it cracked me up. Um so maybe I don't know. I'm probably good for both. Like I appreciate him in both
For sure. For
instances.
sure.
I would just have to see him more often, I guess, to get a good picture. But I think that he did a good job putting himself completely into the role, which I respect regardless.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I will say that a lot of the behind the scenes things or director's notes, things like that, a lot of people were saying that he is one of the most professional actors that they've ever worked with.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's been doing this a long time and he's got quite a large variety of films under his belt. But they said
Yes.
in between the scenes, he wasn't like trying to be over the top, like weird or like method acting or anything
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I
that.
was
He
gonna say
was
he doesn't
just
method
Nicolas
act.
Cage, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
then would
wild to
just
me.
jump right back into it, right? Which definitely comes
Just
with
turn it on,
time.
turn it off. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't even imagine. Like, I think that if I had to play like the role of a serial killer or a victim or something like that in a movie, I think that it would like mess me up for like a few weeks at
No, for
least.
sure. It would traumatize me. I would definitely be a different person for a while. Like I would carry that pain and would have
You
no
start
idea how to
believing
turn it
it.
off, you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be my life story eventually. So props to him for
Yeah,
doing that.
absolutely. Sometimes it's kind of hard to compartmentalize your feelings, I feel like.
Yeah, especially for actors and actresses. And it's funny to
Absolutely.
say that about Nicolas Cage because I heard a lot of the opposite about Micah Monroe, that she kind of like, not that she didn't do a good job, but that she more underplayed her role as Lee Harker, the FBI agent that was kind of like
Oh,
new. She didn't, and I could see that as well in the movie. Like, obviously, there wasn't so many lines, there wasn't so much like
right.
overreacting from her, overacting in her reactions. It
Right.
was more so her just kind of like a lot of heavy breathing and a lot of her just kind of like I don't know, creating an
Yeah.
atmosphere of fear around her for the most part, versus her role in Watcher, where she was very much like front and center, like
Right.
dominating the screen. So
Right.
I guess they both had different approaches to the movie.
Well, that's interesting that you say that. I think we definitely need to get into that. For anybody that hasn't seen the movie Longlegs, we're not going to get into spoilers right away. Basically,
Yeah.
just if you want a general overview of what the movie is about, she is investigating. Micah Monroe's character Lee Harker is investigating a string of just really grisly family murders, basically, in which the
Yeah.
dad just kills everyone in the family, and she's discovering that each family has a lot in common as far as the crimes that are taking place. So every family was obviously killed by the dad. Every family had a daughter that was born on the 14th. And then each
Yes.
massacre basically happened either 6 days before or after the girl's birthday. So it was little things like that. She just kept finding little strange similarities. And then eventually she finds that they are all related to this crazy character, Longlegs, in some way,
Yeah.
even though he was never present at the site of the massacres on the days that they actually took
Yeah. There was no
place.
evidence. They could never figure out
Right.
like, except for a letter that was written in, in
Right.
code and things like that.
Right, very Zodiac killer style.
Yes,
And things get
exactly.
crazier when she starts to realize how she's connected to the entire story. And that's kind of where the meat of the plot is, which I think was pretty successful. I will say, like you said, getting back into it, I do think she underacted her role a little bit. I think that's honestly, I think that's kind of how she was in It Follows. I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
her vibes as the character Jay was that she didn't really say that much. She was pretty quiet. She was pretty calm about everything, even though everything was crazy. But it kind of made sense because it almost seemed like she was more catatonic than anything else. I feel that she
Yeah.
was giving,
Traumatized.
right. I feel she was giving the same tease in this movie. But the thing that got me about it was the harsh juxtaposition, excuse me, between her character and Nicolas Cage's character. I feel like they could have
Yes.
like maybe kind of, I don't want to say like mirrored each other, but there are some parts throughout the film in which they are supposed to be mirroring each
Yeah,
other.
for sure. That iconic car shot between the two.
Right. So I was thinking, I would have loved for her to maybe have some of the same energy, especially at least while she was not in, what's the word? Not interviewing, questioning, interrogating.
Interrogating.
Right. Whenever she was interrogating Longlegs, I would have liked for her to be a lot more crazed or a lot more angry or a lot more frustrated that she wasn't getting the information from him that she wanted. Because if you
Yeah.
were in this position as a law enforcement or as a agent, FBI agent, it would be extremely frustrating to talk to somebody like this and
Yeah.
they're the only person that has the answers essentially to what's going on and they just keep talking in riddles basically. You'd be
Yeah,
mad, you'd
that's
be
the
pissed.
worst.
Right. And then you also get the context clues that she's a newer FBI agent. So it's like you'd want her to kind of start cracking a little bit and start getting really
Yeah.
upset potentially, but she's more so just like, it's over. It's
Yeah,
over.
yeah,
Like
we're
there was
done.
no
It's
more.
a wrap.
Right.
Cool.
Which
Like,
is
I was kind of
like,
like, oh,
you're
okay.
awful
All right.
confident whenever
Yeah,
you
like
have
this
nothing,
is
basically.
yeah, for sure. She was very confident about her theory as well that there may have been more than one person involved, and she's like, so you'd think that she'd be like desperately trying to find the other person by going really hard against Longlegs, and she just kind of let it
Right.
go for the most part until more things happened that brought more out of her. But still, she definitely
Yeah.
played a more like even though she and that I guess that was reflected throughout the movie. Like she would see this very traumatic event and she would sort of have a reaction. Like she would obviously be shaken by it. She would be nervous. She even like lived alone in this very dark house and she seemed very
Hmm.
uncomfortable being there. But it
Right.
was never to the
Gorgeous
point where she
house,
would
though.
actually like yeah, it was gorgeous.
Hmm.
All wood, everything. But she
Yeah.
never like cracked to the point where she just kind of like acted crazy or did anything wild, which maybe that was a stylistic choice between her and
Yeah.
Oz Perkins, but it was just kind of hard to fathom, I guess. I don't know. Maybe if you're an FBI agent, you
Absolutely.
shouldn't crack. Like maybe that's more of like a rookie cop thing versus
For sure.
FBI, but I don't know.
I think I would have loved to see her character kind of break down just a little bit. I think I would have really
Yeah.
loved to see her whenever he was just not giving her what she wanted. I would have loved for her to just have a moment of weakness and be like, please, or just something like just
Yeah.
be totally like just broken down and actually
Yeah.
show the effect of the sheer insanity of Nicolas Cage or of Longlegs. Sorry, I keep saying Nicolas Cage's character because I keep
No, it's
seeing him as Nicolas
okay.
Cage. But
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
have loved to see the sheer effect of the insanity that Longlegs had on
Yeah.
her rather than everything just kind of happening to her. It seemed like she
Yes,
wasn't
for
as
sure.
present, if that makes any sense, just in my opinion.
Yeah, and maybe like I said, maybe that's what they chose to do. Obviously, can't get into spoilers right now, but there is like part of the story that would kind of lend to her being more of a dog character than being a fully
Right.
fleshed out human. But I will
Right.
say that
That's
yeah,
true.
throughout the movie, like I said, things would happen, and her reaction would always just be a beat under what you'd expect a person to react. Like she just never had this
Right.
anxiety about her. She never had this like I need answers now kind of moment. Even
Yeah.
though I was in the theater, like I need answers. I'm trying
Right.
to figure it out. Like I want to know what's
Yeah,
going on.
for sure.
Absolutely. I did like her partner as well, though. Sergeant Carter, I believe his name was. He was
Okay.
cool.
I
I thought
couldn't
he did a
remember
good
his
job as
name.
well.
Yeah,
Blair
I liked
Underwood
him
is the
as well.
actor's name.
Oh, cool.
I feel like he was a great job. Like he played that. He did a good job playing that line between being like your friend, but also being your boss. Believing this
Right.
like kind of wild rookie that just seems to just have this like half psychic ability or some shit going on about her, but
Right.
also being like, okay, we need to be grounded and like actually solve this case. And of course,
Right.
like he just really plays his role well. So you mentioned how a lot of the marketing talked about how this was like the scariest movie ever, was going to be just this absolutely disturbing thing. And it's actually funny that all the marketing said that because I read some interviews from Oz Perkins that was in like NY Times and in, like the Roger Ebert stuff, and he really is like one of those directors who's actually not into the gore and scary scenes. Like he said that he can appreciate a horror movie that's a lot more atmospheric, that's a lot more of a quiet and like even funny movie. So, and obviously you can see that throughout the movie. Like there were more jokey scenes and like really gorgeously shot scenes versus actual like scary shit that happened. So it's wild to me that the movie was marketed that way because overall, it really was not that scary. And so we can kind of talk about some of the things that happened in the movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, guys, from this point forward, there are probably going to be a lot more spoilers. So if you haven't seen this movie or if you um, just don't want to know basically the
Yeah.
extent of the plot yet without forming your own opinion, now would probably be a good time to turn the episode off. We're going to go ahead and just get right into it. You mentioned how she's like the half psychic was the whole thing. That was kind of like a
Yeah.
main point at the beginning of the movie. I did look into a lot of analysis on this movie, and I do understand why that was now, which it's a spoiler, so we can go ahead and, or we already gave our spoiler warning, so we can get into it.
Yeah,
But a lot
yeah,
of people were saying the connection that she had to Longlegs and the connection that she had to the other victims was because of her doll,
yeah,
basically. But something that I think that bothered me was that they kind of only actually like touched on that at the very beginning of the movie, and they didn't really ever like bring it back up again or use that to her advantage in any way. And I kind of
yeah.
would have liked to see that be more of a selling point if that was actually going to be included at all, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if they didn't have enough time or if they just because I felt like you said, they only mentioned it like briefly at the very, very beginning of the movie, and then at the end when
Mm,
they start unrolling the doll stuff, then it's like, oh, okay, that's why it's attached or whatever. But they didn't
right.
really show these times where she seemed to like solve a bunch of cases or like seemed to have this like psychotic inkling for things. There was like one moment I saw someone mention that whenever they did that test, which I still also have no idea why they did that test. I don't think that
Yeah.
anybody like what that to do with trauma, where they did the test and she had to associate pictures with certain words. She saw like an upside
Right.
down triangle and she associated that with father, even though that was supposed to be like the devil or something. It's like very small things that I feel like you would have to look up and go out of your way to know. Like if you watch
Right.
the movie looking forward, you wouldn't notice those things. So I
For
agree.
sure.
They didn't really sell that very much. But I think also I almost feel like maybe the more and again I got almost this from the interviews. I think a lot the major selling point that he had from the movie was actually supposed to be about the mom and like the mother daughter relationship,
Yeah.
which they didn't talk about the mom
At
basically
all.
at all in the
Yeah.
trailers. Like,
Yeah. I think that this was definitely one of those situations. And I compared this in the past. I don't think I said it on the podcast, but the marketing for this was very reminiscent to me of Veronica, which had come out, I think it was probably about 10 years ago or so. But it was basically I think it was a Spanish possession movie, and everybody
okay,
was posting about this is supposed to be the scariest movie that's come out in the past. I think they said the same, like 10 years, something like that.
man,
And all of the marketing was about how terrifying this movie was. When I actually went to go watch the movie, it was like very, and I'm not trying to hate on this movie because I know a lot of people loved it, but it was incredibly forgettable. It was very much
like it was very
forgettable.
tame.
It
Oh
was not
no.
it was not very scary at all. I mean, it was just your run of the mill like possession film. So
Okay.
I was a little bit concerned about that whenever we watched Long Legs. I will say that there were some things that people said that did fall short for me, like when one person said every time he's on screen, like my stomach is in knots, things like that. I
Yeah,
was
that
like,
was a lot.
okay,
Mm,
I see
I
somebody
was
that looks like him roughly
uncomfortable.
once a month.
Yeah, I swear to God. I mean, I was uncomfortable, and he did look
Yeah,
like
he did
I
look
personally did not
crazy.
recognize Nick
Yeah.
Cage at all. Like I did
Oh,
not see Nick Cage. I just
absolutely.
saw like this disturbed, botched character. Like I did not know who that was. But stomach churning, can't look like no, I wouldn't say that at all. My reaction
Hmm.
was very similar to the teenage girl in the gas station who was just reading her book and was like, "Dad, the creepy
Oh,
guy's
weird guys here
back."
again.
That would
Yeah,
be me, literally. Like the scariest moment was probably the Smash title at the beginning whenever they like whenever he's talking
yes.
to Micah being like, "Oh, here's the almost birthday girl," and like everything and then
I've got my long legs on today. What
yes,
if
yes.
I
And then yeah, the title screen pops in. That just had
Yeah,
me jumping.
that
And
was
also the scene
scary.
that was scary. Another like shocking scene was like the one with the agent whenever they first kind of discover Lee Harker's psychic abilities when she picks out the right house and her partner's like, oh, it's
Yeah.
whatever. And then, what happens to him is pretty quick,
Yeah.
pretty like jarring,
That happened quick,
Like
yeah.
that was very shocking to me. But other than that, the rest of the movie, like even Longlegs, it's not like he's actively killing people throughout the movie. So
Right.
that's already not very scary. The annihilations were scary to watch, like seeing these fathers just like tear apart their families. And
Yeah.
throughout the movie, there's like this red imagery that kind of just seems to come
I
on the
love
screen
that,
every so
yeah.
often. That was very, I think all of it contributed to a very unsettling atmosphere. Like I went
For
into the
sure,
theater kind
absolutely,
of like
yeah.
upbeat and amused and kind of left feeling very somber and like morbid, but I wouldn't say I was scared or uncomfortable or like, couldn't walk out of the theater with the lights on or anything. Like I didn't get that vibe at all.
Yeah,
Scary to me is
there were
like blood and guts and murder and screams.
For sure, for sure. And of course it's different for everybody, but I think that a lot of people did agree with you in the fact that it wasn't a super scary movie. It was more so unsettling or creepy. I will say for me, I agree with you actually. That title scene, that beginning scene was the scariest part. And I think that it was because it was showing him from basically, I'm gonna try to do this. It's not gonna be right because it's not gonna crop exactly the same, but it was showing him from like the or the
Oh,
mouth down or something. And we
yes.
just keep thinking everybody that's seen the marketing material for this, which probably everybody in the theater had because that's why we were there, right? Was
Right.
like, I want to see his face. He's supposed to be so terrifying.
Yeah.
And so whenever he just drops, it was like, whoa,
Oh,
whoa. That part was
yeah, he's got a little
definitely,
blink.
it was crazy. And I will say that it wasn't something that should be scary. It was literally just him, basically, which
Yeah, yeah,
I thought it was cool how
yeah,
they did that. I really like the red title cards. I thought that that was really cool, and I really like things that are set in a different time. I like things that are supposed
yeah.
to be set in the 80s and the 70s, things like that. So I thought that that was really cool, and I really appreciated that. I will say,
Yes.
I know that I know that I had a complicated relationship with this movie, and I know that immediately after I watched it, I really did not like the movie. Actually, I liked a lot of it, but I
Yeah.
was unhappy. I'm the type of person, after I watch a movie, it takes me a few days for me to stew on it and really think about it until I decide what my actual thoughts are. And I will say that at this point, I really appreciate the movie. I think that there is a lot that happens in it that is really cool. I think that he tied a lot of really cool things together. I think that one of the strongest things about this movie is a lot of the things that were brought up end up happening again at some point, or they end up being relevant again at some point
Yeah,
throughout the
everything
rest of the
ties
movie.
together.
Whereas I hate to bring up Maxine again and kick it
Oh
while it's
no,
down, but
but
there were
real.
right, there were so many times where something happened and it just kind of meant nothing and had nothing to do with the rest of the movie. I feel like
Yes.
in contrast, this was basically the exact opposite. I really
Yeah.
liked the setting. I think I agree with you. The cinematography is really pretty. All the long shots and all the red and the white and the black. I thought that that was just
Yes. All that
really, really
juxtaposed
cool.
together really, really well. A lot of the innocence of Wyatt, the innocence of
Yes.
this little girl is being affected, plus the blood seeping in everywhere, just these little sprinkles of evil everywhere.
Right.
Also, speaking of, I noticed this during the film, but I didn't realize it was a big Easter egg for people, but you can see the shadow of the devil behind Lee throughout the
Yes.
movie as well.
I
And
saw
I've
that
noticed those
too.
scenes, seeing like the horns and stuff and being like, what is up with
So
that, you
you
know?
you saw it while you were watching?
Yeah, yeah. I was just like, oh, that's
You are
cool. But
so
that's because
observant.
no, that's honestly, it's because I've been watching Hannibal for a while, and they have so many cuts like that in the
Okay.
show. Like, so at this point, I just know how to like look for horns in a scene for real. But I was like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, 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 Well, I thought that was a good touch.
Oh my gosh, I'm shocked that you noticed that.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that just the juice that they did. There's like one where he's like in front of a window or something. There's another one where
Yeah.
there's just like this black figurine in the distance. All of that
Hmm.
was really well done. I don't think I caught the one very, very early on. There's like
I
something
didn't
interesting
catch
about
any of
those
them.
long shots is that like, oh well, there's so like whenever she is just kind of walking around outside before she meets Longlegs for the first time, it's kind of unsettling, but they just have this very long shot of her house and her and like the car in the background, and you keep thinking someone's gonna like come around the corner of the house or something, and nobody
Mm.
ever does. And he has a lot of shots like that in the movie where it's just like these very ominous moments. Also, again with the barn, whenever
And
her
the
and Carter
devil's
go
in
in the
it?
barn. No, sorry, I thought the devil was
Oh.
in it, but there's not. But they're just there's shots where nothing happens versus shots where like there is the devil hidden in the
Which I
background.
appreciate. Which I appreciate.
Yeah,
I love whenever they're
that
in a
builds as well.
movie. One of the things that kills fear for me so hard in a movie is whenever every time you expect something to happen, it does. I think that that's
Yeah, for
just
sure.
so. I can't stand something to be so predictable. So I did
Yeah,
like
that's
that
too
there were
much.
many parts where it was like, okay, you expect someone going to pop out of the car or pop from behind her or whatever, but it doesn't happen until she's already walking all the way back to her house. So I
Yeah.
thought that that was cool. I thought the timing was good on that as well.
Yeah, he did a lot of playing around in the background of the movie, I feel like, and that was really inspired and kind of helped again build that atmosphere. Same thing with like lots of darkness. The movie was very
Hmm.
dark in a lot of parts, almost, which is why I tell people to see it in the movie theaters. Obviously, you can get the same experience at your house, but I just feel like being in a theater and like having the entire scene around me being completely black and
Yeah.
all they have is little flashlights just added to the vibes for me. But I feel like they did a good job of tying all the concepts together, but they did kind of, sorry, I say they, obviously he did throw in a lot of concepts into the movie. I feel like it possibly was too much, and maybe if you really think about it, it doesn't really make too much sense. Like,
Mm.
okay, there's this evil doll maker, and there's the devil, and there's this fucked up mom. And it's like, okay, they brought it together well, and they did a good job executing it. But it is like a very loose idea that I feel like could have easily been a flop. So I don't
Right.
know. It was just kind of like a lot of ideas thrown together for me, but they
Yeah.
did a good job with it.
I think what ultimately got me to respect the movie or enjoy the movie more was whenever I looked into kind of the biblical stuff in the background, just because
Yeah,
obviously, well, I say obviously, it's not obvious at all. You know this because you
yeah,
know me,
no,
but I
yeah,
grew up Catholic. And so
yeah.
biblical stuff, that was something that I have kind of my own personal connection with. I'm not
Super
doing
Catholic
that
anymore.
anymore or whatever. The shadow of
Hmm.
Catholicism is still following me, so I
Yes.
still have an understanding of a lot of
Ooh,
the
eerie.
ideals the ideals behind it. But there's this Bible verse, Book of Revelation, chapter 13, verse 1,
Revelation,
that
no S.
right, exactly, that keeps getting kind of brought up or repeated throughout the movie. And I'll go ahead and read it now. But and I
Sure.
stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And then basically also in that same chapter in Revelation, oh my God. In that
No,
same
it's okay.
chapter
It's okay.
in Revelation, it tells of a dragon that empowers this beast in order to basically carry out the work of the man downstairs, which is the devil. I don't know why I just
Yes.
pointed to my crotch there, but the man downstairs,
You
which
know,
is the
down
devil.
under.
And a lot of people were basically saying that Lee's mother, Ruth, would have been the beast, and together with, or sorry, Longlegs would have been considered the dragon, which is leading the beast to blasphemy, essentially.
Yes.
Together with the man downstairs, the devil, they complete the unholy trinity. So I thought that that was a really cool thing,
Absolutely.
which is basically the inverse of the holy trinity, which is the Father, Son, the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit, something like that for people who.
Wow, I would not have made that connection.
Right, I thought that
I
that was
should
pretty
have, but
cool. Well, that's
yeah.
what ended up turning, because I was just being real bitter about it because I'm such a
Yeah.
hater. But anyway, that's kind of what turned my brain about it. And I was like, that's really cool. I like that he did that. And I thought that it was cool that he did it in a way that was applicable to real life. That wasn't so
Yeah, like it was a
literal, I
mother trying to
guess.
protect her daughter,
Right. It wasn't so
versus
literal. It was like, here's this creepy guy. Like, it's not like
yeah.
some incredible like vampire king or something. It's just some creepy
Yeah,
guy
yeah. No,
at a
just a guy
bus
that really
stop.
worships Satan, honestly.
Right. Exactly. So I thought that
Kind of
that was
campy guy too. That
Oh,
was
he's
so wild.
he was camp.
Pure camp. I mean, hail Satan.
Oh my God. Okay, I will say
Girl, that had me
that I think
screaming.
that was the part where I just stared at the screen like this. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
that was when I decided
That was
I
cringe
wasn't
for everybody,
enjoying
for
myself.
sure.
Yeah.
For
okay.
sure.
And
Oh,
then her mom did the same thing, and I was like,
So everybody's loving this, right? Okay, great.
oh my gosh. And people were like in the theater next, of course, those are like regular, normal people that probably
No,
don't watch
literally.
a lot of horror movies or whatever. But
Heard someone say hail Satan was like,
yeah,
oh my God, we're living in a hellscape. I'm
yeah,
like,
you can
girl,
say
what?
that on TV type shit. Like,
Yeah.
yes, girl.
I think the strong points of the movie were mostly the acting, a lot of the cinematography, the plot. Well, the acting, I guess, obviously that's kind of where we differ. I definitely do see your perspective that like there could have been a lot more from Micah's character, and probably maybe even
A little
like
bit, yeah.
something different from Longlegs. But I do feel like everyone came together and showed up. They had a purpose. Everyone, contributed. The mom did a great job playing her role as like this. I felt uneasy about the mom pretty much from the moment she was introduced in the movie. Like she was like loving
On the
and they had a
phone,
good
you
relationship.
mean?
Yeah, literally on the
Yeah.
phone. I was like, she sounds like she's about to
And
kill.
she was like,
she's
have
gonna
you
be
been saying your
annihilator,
prayers? Yeah.
I'm like, what the
that
hell?
was like,
And then,
I knew
oh,
something was
gosh.
off when she said that for the first time. I was like,
Yes.
oh, okay. Not that there's anything wrong with praying, people. I'm just saying it was you.
No,
If you
no,
heard the
but
movie,
the way
you know
they,
exactly.
yeah, that's a strange vibe.
It was
and like the
off.
family was good. I like the way
Mhm.
that Micah. I like the funny moments, the little funny moments between characters. I think a movie is good when they can like joke around with each other. I liked Micah being like, "Do I have to?" Whenever it was time for her to go hang out with her boss's daughter
was
and
cute.
family,
Yeah,
that
it was
cracked me
cute.
up. That was
I'm
good.
not super
but
into I notoriously, excuse me, don't like comedy in horror, but I did think that
Yeah.
there were some little parts in that movie that were it wasn't supposed to be outright funny. Like, for
Yeah, it
example,
was just
that
like,
scene, it was more
smirk.
so right. It was just like, oh, this is a real life situation that's just like awkward and
Yeah,
funny
exactly.
and cute.
The movie definitely leaned more real life thriller than like supernatural horror, I would say, despite how it was sold.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
But I still
Yeah,
appreciated
definitely.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
So acting,
Absolutely.
cinematography, and the plot was pretty good too. So I feel like it did hit everything it was supposed to hit better than Maxine and other summer movies so far.
It definitely
But
eclipsed Maxine, that's for sure.
I don't know if I definitely do think the marketing was a bit over the top with the 10-10. This is the best horror of the summer, scared horror of the summer.
Yeah.
Like, we'll see. We'll see, girly.
Yeah.
I still give that to Late Night with the Devil. That was a lot.
Yeah.
That checked everything. Original,
Absolutely.
crazy,
Absolutely.
like kept me on the edge of my seat. Like that was a thriller
And
right
also,
there.
if the budget was like probably a little bit higher, would have been astronomically
Nuts.
better in my opinion as well, because I
Yeah.
think that they probably did the best they could do with what they had.
Yeah.
Basically.
And that was
we
still
all
pretty
know that
damn good.
I'm obsessed with David Dasmalchian as well now.
Yeah.
Obsessed.
Beauty King.
So yeah. Would you say
Our
Beauty King?
King.
Yeah.
Yes. I
True.
was gonna say I'm gonna just say Scream King, but then Beauty
I mean,
came out. I'm like, you know what? It all
Freudian
comes together.
slip. Freudian
It's
slip.
all true.
Yeah.
It really was. I thought there was a little shout out in the interview I read from Osgood Perkins where he mentioned that he was kind of inspired a little bit also by Dogtooth by Yorgos Lanthimos, just talking about
Oh.
how not like inspired completely, but just touching again on that mother-daughter relationship and how far a parent will go to preserve the pureness of their children. Because,
Yeah.
spoiler, the mom's like whole reason for doing all this shit for the devils because she wants to prevent
We didn't
anything
even say
bad
why
happening.
we didn't even say what she's
Yeah, yeah.
doing. Should we say it? Yeah, we might as well.
Uh, yeah, I think so. Yeah, we might as well get into that. So like Lee is investigating this Longlegs killer. She's not sure how he's doing what he's doing, but they go to like this barn and they find a doll in the barn, and that kind of like begins unraveling the mystery. And eventually, she
Hmm.
finds out that she also has a doll, and essentially, the devil is like using this orb thing inside the doll's brain to like control them. I don't know if that is to control them, or if that's supposed to represent their soul. I'm not really sure, but essentially, when the doll is brought to the family's home, it immediately unlocks something within the family of just like evil and like lets the devil loose in their family, and that's why the fathers would start killing everyone.
Hmm.
And then basically in the final well, actually, I don't have to say all that, but the dolls are getting to the house because this woman that they know that is very approachable, is very kind, and has this nun appearance, is coming in and being like, "Oh, you want a gift from the
From
church?
the
It's this beautiful
church.
doll."
Yeah.
And of course, the church, the nice young nun, is Lee's mother, and she didn't
Yeah.
realize it. But way back when, she actually met Longlegs as a kid and had
Yeah.
her own doll made. And so the movie just kind of like really kicks off into the third act from that point on. But
Yeah.
yeah, so the mom is working as like an assistant, the devil essentially doing she, and I guess she justifies it in her head as she's not killing anyone, she's not stabbing anyone, but she is bringing this chaotic evil
Yeah.
force into
She's
their homes
causing.
that makes it happen. And she does it over and over and over again
Right.
just to allow Lee to live and grow up to be an adult, which is
Yeah.
just fucked. Completely
Crazy.
fucked.
Yeah,
That is fucked.
something that I want to mention is a lot of people were saying I simply would not. This was like a meme, of course it's supposed to be funny, but a lot of people were saying I simply would not be in that position because if somebody brought me a life-size doll of my child, I would tell them to like fuck off or whatever. But I was like,
No, literally.
first of all, yeah, that's like funny or whatever. But actually, so Oz Perkins was actually inspired by the John Benet Ramsey case for the dolls because
Really?
apparently she was unalived in the same room as a life-size doll basically of herself, which was a popular doll at the time
Oh,
called a my
creepy.
twin doll. So this was not unusual. It was not unusual for kids to want dolls that like look like themselves, and they were even available at the
Wow.
time as well. So that's just another thing to consider. This probably wouldn't have
Yeah.
been as strange as you would have thought it was, right? And then
Yeah.
it's your daughter's birthday. It's not like they're just bringing it whenever. They're like, "Oh, we know
Yeah.
about."
Free gifts.
Right. So it was pretty pertinent to the situation. Also, they were saying that Longlegs' face was so messed up because it was supposed to be the result of basically several botched surgeries because he was trying to be pretty for the devil. That was another
Yeah.
thing.
I remember reading that. There was like a glam 80s moment kind of built into there,
Right.
which I thought, I don't know. I like some theories. I'm like, okay, maybe someone saw
Yeah.
something that I didn't. I can definitely appreciate them. But sometimes I
Some
do
of them
think
are.
people just take a lot of liberties and just make a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
assumptions. And I'm like, I don't know. Whatever you need to sleep at night.
Yeah.
Maybe they just thought that's what a scary person should look like. He was campy, he was dramatic, so I can
Yeah.
see him doing those botched surgeries, but I'm just like,
Right.
I don't know. That's just kind of like
Yeah.
wild to me. I think that was just a poor stylistic choice.
Yeah, I
Same thing with
agree.
him. Like, I do like see the notes of like repressed trauma and childhood trauma throughout the movie for sure. I don't know if that was the intention of the film to like be this is what happens if you never face up to your trauma. It always comes back or
Right.
whatever. Like I
Yeah,
can
for
see that, but I
sure.
think that's an assumption.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to mention, I didn't notice this until somebody said something next to me, and then I felt so lame about it. I was like, oh my gosh. And it's probably the only reason
What?
why they probably knew was because they probably looked it up. But anyway, so the end credits at the end of the movie actually scroll down and wait, scroll down. Yes, scroll down instead of up. And so the whole idea behind that is it's supposed to go toward the
Oh.
man downstairs.
Oh
So it's
my
not like the cat. It's
god.
like
I
not
did
like
not notice
cast like this.
that.
Yes, it goes down. And I
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
thinking that's kind of strange, but I thought whatever. But then the guy next to me
That's
was like, "It's
funny.
going toward the man downstairs," and I was like, first of all,
I did
this
not
guy
notice
did
that
not
at
know.
all.
He didn't notice that. Okay, he saw that
Girl, he
somewhere.
yeah, he looked that up.
Yeah.
Bitches. He's on his phone in the theater.
Oh my gosh.
Devil.
Yeah, they were funny though. He helped me recline my chair, so he's cool.
Aw, nice. Hope he's having a good day. Shout out
Yeah,
to that guy.
absolutely. Yeah, shout out to him.
Absolutely. Check out our pod, bro.
Period.
Yeah. I enjoyed the movie overall. I think it was good. Someone commented on our Instagram page. I'm sorry, I don't remember their name right now, but they said that the movie was it's dot 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 fine. And I think that is a perfectly acceptable description of the film. It was fine. Wasn't bad. It wasn't, knock your socks off great, but it was a good film. Great way to spend a weekend. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it for what it was and it was well done.
I
So,
think we
and that's
needed
okay.
something like this. I think we definitely needed something like this. And I think that it definitely filled a space that was not being filled this year. And I appreciate them for doing that. It's not my movie of the year, but I thought it was a great movie. Actually, I did enjoy it. I had my own bones to pick with different parts of the movie, but it was an enjoyable movie. Definitely go check it out. If you're gonna pick this one or Maxine, you know what we're gonna say. So
Man, yeah.
definitely not to keep ragging on it or kicking it while it's down, but shoes long legs. So
Yeah, just go check it out. Check it out
yeah.
first.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. That wraps up our episode for today. Did you see Longlegs? And if you did, what did you think of it? And if you didn't, why'd you sit through this whole episode and let us ruin it for you? I love that. Dedication.
Yes.
Alrighty, guys. As usual, thank you for your support, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.